running now or further away. It's early in the morning, there's nothing left to say. What the hell was going on? What the hell did I do wrong? I'm picking up the pieces to a puzzle that'll lead me to you. What can I do? Oh, I'm bending backwards only to words left on my mind. Well, I'm bending backwards only to words left on my mind. So running there, further away. And you know there's nothing in the world that could make me go back to you someday. Ooh. What the hell was going on? What the hell did I do wrong? I'm picking up the pieces to a puzzle that'll lead me to you, and then I want to go. Oh, I'm bending backwards only to.
Hey everyone, Greg Staley here from Diverge Media.
Project Chris here.
All right, we're gonna wait till people come in. Tonight we got an announcement. We're running back on StreamYard, so it's gonna look a little bit different. But that is part of what we're gonna be talking about is our live streaming schedule going forward. So what are we at for people coming in right now? Okay, so we'll wait a few minutes here before we do that. But we're gonna make an announcement tonight about what we plan on doing going forward, and we'll explain why we're going to do that. But in the meantime, I want to show a video that I think is a good summary of what's going on right now. And yeah.
Oh, it's a nice shirt.
Yes, it is.
Here, everyone out, come on. Not you, Scotty. Not you, number 2. Not you, Frap. Not
Hold up, what's the volume at? We're full. Okay. Yeah, we're good, we're good.
here, everyone out, come on. Not you, Scotty. Not you, number 2. Not you, Frap. Not you, gold member. Not you guys back there. Not you, henchman holding wrench. Not you, henchman arbitrarily turning knobs, making it seem like you're doing something. Oh, this is uncomfortable.
The tiny one can't take a hint. He doesn't understand. He is small.
Okay, so that's that video there, but thought it was a fitting little video on what's going on with small business right now. So as people are coming in, we'll have a little bit of a chat about what we're going to be doing, but basically we'll start off with that announcement, and then we'll go through the news cycle today. So the news cycle this week as well as today. So it's a lot of work to constantly be putting together 2 live streams a week. And part of that is feeling like we don't have enough content to go through. And our aim for this is to be like a news broadcast where we rapid fire the facts and data at you and then give very little opinion. And the way things are currently set up with the amount of work that we're able to get through in a couple of days in between is sometimes you have enough or more than enough, and other times it's too much to try to make a show of and end up giving a lot of opinion. So don't want to be doing that in the future. What we want to be doing is just presenting the facts and evidence of what's going on as neutrally as possible. So with that, we're making the announcement that we will not be live streaming 2 days a week anymore, but instead we'll be live streaming just once every 2 weeks. Be looking at Wednesdays for the live stream midweek. But what we're going to do is there will still be 2 videos a week that are similar to what our live streams are. There will be like a news broadcast style live stream where we'll have a little bit of conversation in there, but it gives us the opportunity to fire off the facts in an edited platform or in an edited way and present it as a live news broadcast rather than just a longer live stream where we're constantly giving opinion. We just want to present the evidence as straight and quick as possible. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going to 2 videos a week that will be 20 to 45 minutes, trying to keep them under an hour, but basically like a news cycle would be. And we will give you our show that way from here on out going forward. We want to make sure that it's presented in a way that's palatable. And so part of being a business owner is when things aren't working the way they need to be, is putting your ego to the side and realizing they're not working. And so I think I've been giving my opinion too much. And we just want to, again, we're trying to be a neutral news source. We have our biases, but we're trying to present what's going on, what doesn't get talked about as much, the experts that don't get talked about, the opposing viewpoints that don't get talked about. But I don't need to be giving a long opinion piece on everything that's out, and nor is it easy to do. And so we will be going to a news broadcast style and delivering our videos twice a week. So instead of Monday and Thursday, it will be Tuesday and Friday. And we'll probably be looking at 7 o'clock, I think, is the time we talked about for viewing those or for premiering those. So they'll be coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Fridays now, and they'll be premiered videos. And we won't be live streaming, but what we will do is we will be sitting in the comment section with you as it premieres and watching the news broadcast with you. So we'll still be doing that, and we still are going to be, again, live streaming once every 2 weeks, and that just gives us more time to go through the news cycle and present a live stream where it's matter of fact and less opinion. So I want it to be like 4/5 just firing off articles, facts, evidence, and maybe 1/5 opinion and conversation back and forth about it. So that's what the plan is going forward, and I'm boring project, but that's what we're looking at. So we're back on StreamYard as well, and playing around with some of the banners and stuff like that, so don't mind that. That's it. This is going to be the new look here on out going forward. And so yeah, let's get into a news cycle and go for what we had planned for everyone tonight.
On that, I have a screen share, really quick thing.
Okay.
Quick tweet on the emergency orders. This tweet I found kind of interesting because I didn't really think about it, but it's true. Ford says he doesn't believe in a curfew because he doesn't want police harassing you for pulling out of your driveway after 8 p.m. But a stay-at-home order means police can theoretically harass you for pulling out of your driveway at 2 p.m. How does that make sense? It doesn't.
Yeah, so on that note, let's add on here. I'll add one more piece and then we'll talk about that. So this was out of the... No, I don't want the Moscow Times. That's for later.
I just kind of want to say, you don't really think about it, but he really gave us a worse sentence.
Yeah, it depends on which way you look at it. I'm going to give you another article. This one's out of the Hamilton Spectator. Police do not have the power to stop drivers to enforce new stay-at-home order, the Ontario tells police chiefs. So, under Ontario's new emergency measures, police officers do not have the authority to stop a car solely to check compliance with stay-at-home measures, and individuals don't have to tell officers why they're outside, according to a government memo. Sent to police chiefs Wednesday on the eve of Ontario's emergency measures coming into effect, the government document provides guidance to police and bylaw officers now enforcing the province's stay-at-home order after initial confusion over officers' role. As of Thursday, the province's stay-at-home order permits Ontarians to only leave the house for essential reasons, which include going to the grocery store or pharmacy, attending a healthcare appointment, work, or getting exercise outside. Under the emergency measures, police and bylaw enforcement can issue tickets to individuals who do not comply with the stay-at-home order. So that's the only new piece I wanted to add from that. I didn't see the government memo when I wrote mine, but yeah, it's there. So that, and we'll come into our article on it. This gives a little more context about what the Spectator was going to go into, because it comes from the same press release. So the Ontario Newsroom, you can look it up. You don't need to be a journalist to be a part of it. Ontario Newsroom and the newswire.ca websites, a lot of journalism and bloggers get press releases from there, from governments, from companies. If that's something you're interested in, you can go there. But here we are, Premier 4. There will be some really dark days ahead, some turbulent waters, but we will get through this. So in that, they talk about other changes coming, and here's what the changes look like. Outdoor, organized public gatherings and social gatherings are further restricted to a limit of 5 people with limited exceptions. Individuals are required to wear a mask or face covering in the indoor areas of businesses or organizations that are open. So this wasn't exactly new, but it made the list anyways. And so my question is, are they going to be honoring mask exemptions? And we'll go into that a little bit more after got on the Human Rights Code and what applies. All non-essential retail stores, including hardware stores, alcohol retailers, and those offering curbside pickup or delivery, must open no earlier than 7 a.m. and close no later than 8 p.m. The restricted hours of operation do not apply to stores that primarily sell food, pharmacies, gas stations, convenience stores, and restaurants for takeout or delivery. Wearing a mask or face covering is now recommended outdoors when you can't physically distance more than 2 meters. So again, the concern is, if now it's a recommendation, but what if a bylaw officer, you're in a crowded public sphere, are they going to start pushing that? So that concern comes to mind when I read it. Non-essential construction is further restricted, including below-grade construction exempting survey. Dr. David Williams, Chief Medical Officer of Health, had this to say about the new measures. Basically, by strictly adhering to them, we'll keep our community safe. You can agree or not agree. Source from Statista, we have deaths per million, and just want to bring this up again. Deaths per million total. Italy, we have above. United Kingdom, we have above. Peru, USA, Spain, Bulgaria, all above Sweden. So in deaths per million. Now, also we did an article a while back, What's Life Really Like in Lockdown Sweden, where we go through some more of the stats relevant to them and their approach. You can check that out. Under the new enforcement measures, under the declaration of a provincial emergency, the province will provide authority to all enforcement and provincial offences officers, including the Ontario Provincial Police, local police forces, bylaw officers, and provincial workplace inspectors, to issue tickets to individuals who do not comply with the stay-at-home order, or those not wearing a mask or face covering indoors, as well as retail operators and companies who do not enforce. So this puts businesses in a precarious position. They're going to be fined for potentially, the big concern is, will they honor mask exemptions? Are they going to find people and businesses who are allowed, with a medical exemption to shop, and the businesses have been allowing it and recognizing, are they now going to be fined for doing so? So that's what came up out of that press release. But we'll come back to you, Broderick.
I was going to ask you, I don't know if Linda's in or not, but if you wanted to kind of talk about Chief Larkin's decision for Waterloo Region. Was it that he wasn't going, like his officers weren't going to be actively enforcing this, or like in a different wording?
Give me a minute on that. I heard about it. My understanding was it wasn't per se about won't be enforcing, but that they didn't have the resources to enforce.
And that doesn't surprise me for Waterloo Region, because even for the paramedic services, they've been understaffed for years. It doesn't surprise me for police, because I know they also do respond quite a bit to, I believe, overdoses and stuff like that, which is a heavy issue in this region.
Well, they have a lot on their hands already, and that's kind of been have your qualms with the bylaw orders themselves, obviously, yeah, but it's more than that. You're pulling people off. They were already short-staffed in a policing sense before to deal with the harder crimes, the violent crimes, the drug overdoses, those type of issues, and now we're pulling, numerous officers to deal with snitches essentially coming in to tell a business or somebody complains at a business. And this is what police officers are being made to do. They're not mall security. I'm sorry. That's not their job. And that's like, regardless of what you feel about the measures, that should be the approach on the police side. They should not be getting involved. And what we're seeing is in stores where they're going to enforce it, we're seeing them not one, not two, not three, not four. I just watched a gym owner in Ottawa have the police show up to try to shut him down, and it had 6 officers, I counted, at the door to enforce the measure with a bylaw officer. Like, that's 6 officers that should be out helping the community, and you're not helping the community by shutting down a gym. It's not the case. But I have an article that goes into a little bit about Police Chief Larkin's comments. Police won't be stopping people randomly to enforce stay-at-home order, Larkin says. So this is in Kitchener. Kitchener, with the Ontario's government stay-at-home orders now in effect, the province is promising stiff fines and even jail time for violators. But during a Thursday morning media conference, Waterloo Regional Police Service Police Chief Brian Larkin stressed that their approach would be empathetic and caring, only targeting those who overtly put others in danger. He said, "I do see this as a common sense approach. I do see this as being a good citizen," he said during the virtual conference. Chiefs met with the Solicitor General on Wednesday night, trying to determine exactly how police would enforce the order. So it sounds like they're still working through how they're gonna. But again, you're giving an officer discretion, and they say they're gonna be compassionate, and I get good, I guess. But what does that mean? Like, we will, like, common sense approach and be a good citizen. Like, what do you deem putting others in danger? And it's giving the discretion to an officer to make that call, and that's what makes me nervous. Is it's if I'm in my car at 8:30 at night and the curfew is 8, it's none of your damn business what I'm doing. I could be driving around the block. It doesn't matter. If you don't suspect me of a crime, you don't, like, we're reaching a breach in the judicial system where it's no longer going to be innocent till proven guilty. It's going to almost be a sense, I'm going to be compassionate, but if I suspect you of guilt, you might be guilty until proven innocent. So, yeah, compassionate, but if you're not suspected of a crime or you haven't committed a crime, and not that it is a crime, it's a bylaw infraction with the threat of jail time. And it's subject to the Human Rights Code, the bylaw itself. So anyways, the next day, Larkin explained that police will stop people if they notice any rule breaking, but that the response will be mainly complaint driven. Oh, that's heartening. So that means that in Kitchener-Waterloo region, their response to these measures will be mostly complaint driven. So if we have very active Karens and Kens, and not the names per se, but the attitudes behind the name, the stereotype of it, then we will have all sorts of issues for people potentially. And so who's going to be ratted out on if you have a mask exemption? Are you going to be still recognized with that mask exemption and be able to go out about your day and do your essential shoppings and things like that? We'll go back to you.
Yeah, back on the, even at my work, last 2 weeks, there's been 2 overdoses, and the one time that I was there for that, they had, I think, 2 or 3 police officers. I think it was 2 police.
Sorry, to back that up, you mean 2 overdoses at your job?
Like in the washroom, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's 1 a week in the last 2 weeks, but they had 2 police officers show up, and some, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was our cleaning staff with some sort of special gear on, or some other cleaners coming to make sure the washrooms are clean. But,
so you had literally 2 overdoses in your businesses where you work. We'll leave the name out, but in the premises of your business, inside the bathroom, in the last week, you were saying?
Last 2 weeks. So
last 2 weeks.
It's a common occurrence, right? Like, it's not especially at the location I'm at. It's like that central. Not even really that central, but it's near. There's a big bus stop there, and it's just been a common thing over the years.
You have to wonder how much all of this plays into it with the lockdowns, the ongoing. Like, was it always a problem? Is it getting worse? I mean, is there even somebody keeping track of those kind of stats? But either way, that's kind of a concerning thing to have people overdosing in a public bathroom that, you know, is a very popular spot. Like where you're at, there's lots of kids and things like that that would be coming in and out.
Yeah, I just got my first aid class B, so that what I learned in that was apparently when you revive somebody with naloxone from an overdose, apparently they usually wake up angry and swinging, so they'll literally wake up and like start swinging at you because they get mad that you took away their high. That was interesting to learn, at least, because if I ever had to do that, I
So,
would get punched in the face.
so you had training on how to handle it if you ran into it yourself?
Yeah, but this was voluntary. Like I asked to be trained for first aid, CPR, and AED and all that jazz. But
They teach you on the what's the shot called for overdose? Nova? Is it-
naloxone, it's a nasal spray or it's generally a nasal spray, but I forget which was more.
Hmm.
I forget which one was more effective, but I believe the nasal spray is the common go now.
Okay, I was just laughing at Tim's comment. He's like, that happens with alcohol too. You wake up swinging. So, you know, I'm gonna miss some of that for the live streams for sure. But want to go into? I got the human rights code here. I got pulled up. I'm gonna pull up the bylaw through our mask exemption article. Do I have my screen share on there, Kate, or no?
You want to just do a little recap on our big announcement because Linda was a little late.
Okay, so I guess we have a few more have come in, so we'll make the announcement one more time.
Little
But
tired.
yeah, for those that are tardy, or those that were tardy, we will be going to one live stream every 2 weeks on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Outside of that, we are going to be doing recorded and edited videos. We're aiming for a news broadcast style where it's less of our opinion and just straightforward with the facts. And then we'll try to have constantly interesting topics and things like that. But part of that is with the editing, we'll be able to bring up the articles easier. We'll be able to bring up the key parts of the articles and pop it out, make it look professional. And so we'll be doing that. It will be Tuesdays and Fridays. We're still going to be recording Mondays and Thursdays, but you'll be getting videos Tuesdays and Fridays that we will premiere. And we will be putting those on at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will join you, and we'll be in the comment section and talk about what's going on in the live stream video we've set up. We're aiming for 20 to 45 minutes to keep it like a proper news cycle. And if we have media interviews, it will be up to the discretion of the person we're interviewing. If they're more comfortable in an edited platform, we will be doing that. If they're more comfortable in a live stream platform or a live stream version of an interview, then we can do that, and we might have a few surprises that way. But I think it's important to adapt and throw our ego to the side, and we need more people viewing our work. I think we present a counter, an alternative in media. We present a narrative that rarely gets touched on. We try to present that narrative with as much facts and evidence as humanly possible for us to find. And ultimately, you know, it's great to have a supportive audience, but we also want to reach people that wouldn't agree with us. And so part of that is we need to do what we need to do to have a palatable and professional platform. And so we're working on getting that done. So what's happening in the comments? Saw a video where a guy's life was saved with the Narcan, and when he regained consciousness, he got up and kicked his savior in the balls for ruining his eye. I mean, that's a kick in the knackers is what that is. Man.
Basically, Narcan just it takes away all the effects of opioids. So it's like it's crazy. It's crazy how a drug can do that, but
Just swallow. Can we get a 24-hour stream of your working like Big Brother style. I don't even
We're for 24 hours.
so we can watch and comment anytime. I would just say if there was a 24-hour live stream of this household, I'm
Be a
pretty sure
madhouse.
it would be madhouse, and I'm pretty sure nobody would want, like, there'd be like 12 to 15 hours a day that would just be unwatchable. There'd be screaming kids in the background, and you'd wonder how I sit at a computer and type and do research and articles with all the noise in the background. But I have dad abilities now where I can tune out any background noise, including my wife, at will, and sometimes not on purpose. But it's a gift and a curse, right? Write down your schedule, boys and girls. So Tuesdays and Fridays, and then we'll do a schedule up. But basically, once you realize it's every 2 weeks on the live stream, and then we'll be doing premiered videos where you'll get an update and a notice anyways, Linda, about when we'll be going live. It should give you an hour notice, I think is what it normally is. And then it will let you know right before it happens. But that will be Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. And the reason we're doing that is more people can reach us at that 7 p.m. time slot. That's first off. Right now, the later evenings, we're competing with a bunch of other channels that are maybe vying for some of the same audience. So it's a struggle. So it's in our benefit to go to an earlier time. And again, we're going to be working hard at the editing style to present a proper news broadcast. It's important for us to hit that quality the way it needs to come across. So we're going to get that done. But are you ready to get back into some more stuff?
Yeah. I want to get to the Jack Dorsey video.
Oh, let's go Jack Dorsey. So Project Veritas recently has an undercover video. They've had 12 different people come forward undercover in Twitter this week alone. And one of them has Jack Dorsey on video. And we're going to go play that now. Projects.
Always feel free to express yourself in whatever format manifestation you like. You intend to do the retro, as I said in my note. It is going to take some time.
Can you turn that up a little bit?
Goes out a little bit. We
And just restart it for a sec.
are going to do right now.
I think that's
Oh, why yours always gives us trouble here.
On much longer than this is great. The next week is going to go on beyond.
Yeah, that's too quiet. I got it on my end, so I'm going to pull it up on my end and see if mine's louder, okay? Do I have, sorry everyone, pull up the screen share with the audio here.
people can.
And that's not the one. Here we go. I'll pull it up on mine here.
In my note, it is going to take some time.
And my wife's got to go get a baby.
You should always feel free to express yourself in whatever.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Are we good?
Yeah, you're good. I'm not good. There we go.
You should always feel free to express yourself in whatever format manifestation feels right. We do intend to do a full retro, as I said in my note. It is going to take some time. And then the other thing, just to close out a little bit, we are focused on one account right now, but this is going to be much bigger than just one account, and it's going to go on for much longer than just this day, this week, the next few weeks. It's going to go on beyond the inauguration. We have to expect that. We have to be ready for that. So the focus is certainly on this account and how it ties to real world violence, but also we need to think much longer term around how these dynamics play out over time. I don't believe this is going away anytime soon, and the moves that we're making today around QAnon, for instance, is one such example of a much broader approach that we should be looking at and going deeper on. So the team has a lot of work and a lot of focus on this particular issue. We also need to give them the space and the support to focus on the much bigger picture, because it is not going away. The U.S. is extremely divided. platform is showing that every single day, and our role is to protect the integrity of that conversation and do what we can to make sure that no one is being harmed based off that. And that is the focus, and that is the color we want to provide.
There you have it. Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, recorded by one of his own employees, an insider whistleblower at Twitter, recorded saying this is going to be much bigger than just one account, revealing some censorship. You can see our motto at Veritas, our organization protected by an army of citizen patriots. We've had over a dozen people reach out to us this week with video, evidence inside Twitter. Stay tuned. They may be private companies, but they have more power than all three branches of government. Veritas Tips at protonmail.com.
Well, there you have it. So the one thing that stood out to me, and I'll get your comments on this, is that comment to say we need to protect the integrity of the conversation, and then he kind of alludes to not preventing crimes, but preventing basically wrongthink that could cause harm, I think is what he said. And now my question is, what do you mean by protecting the integrity of the conversation? What do you mean by cause harm? Because cause harm, okay, is fundamentally different. If you're a platform, then you don't have any obligation to take anything down unless it's a crime, which could be inciting violence. And if you're a publisher, you can do both, but they're acting as though they're not a publisher and trying to seek the benefits of being a platform. So what do they mean by to protect the integrity of the conversation, first off? And what does that look like? And they say it's going to be bigger than just one account, and it will go on for some time. What are your thoughts on that?
It's kind of scary to watch. I know it's slowly happening here in Canada, but it's in the hands of one social media giant, and then also slowly but surely every social media. Like, we've already seen it happen over the last week, and it's crazy. Even tonight, I tried signing up for Gab. I think it's that their servers are slow, but which is good for them. But I could not sign up.
Everybody that's been trying to get on Gab and alternative social media companies that are starting to do well. There's also Minds.com. I've found that it's not bad, but it's not. It's like a stripped down version of Twitter a little bit, in my opinion. And yeah, the Gab thing is you got to have a little bit of patience with a company that's onboarding roughly 500 to 750,000 people a day. And so, they have their server capacity, but I'm sure they can't get more server capacity quick enough right now. And so hopefully people don't just bail on them altogether. Again, it's not that I don't need to support the personal founder of the company. I just support free speech. And so in that sense, I wish Gab all the best, and I think more alternatives are better. But yeah, I went to Gab, slow right now. So many coming over, yep. And so here we are. We'll see what happens. But the Twitter thing, their Twitter stock has been falling. There's been reports on that. But with them saying ongoing, this is going to be ongoing, I wonder how much this will continue to affect their stock. And so are they looking at that big picture? Are they even concerned about that? And do they even really care about that side of things? It seems like, in a sense, they're kind of hurting themselves right now. I don't know if they think this will be better for them in the long term, or if they don't care, and it's almost an activist corporation at this point.
I'm sure, and this isn't verified, but I'm sure they're getting some money through the back door somehow. I mean, why would you sabotage your own business if there wasn't something in it for you?
Or you'd have to look at Jack Dorsey's personal views. I mean, I'm gonna go right on the record and say, like, absolutely, I don't support that statement just because we don't know. There's no right. It's a hunch. It's a gut feeling that you may have, right? But Jack Dorsey himself, I think, if you've listened to a bunch of what he said and talked about, he seems pretty strong in his political bias. We'll leave it at that. And so, what I almost wonder if he doesn't really care so much about the stock. Like, at a certain point, you have money, you have money. Doesn't really affect him if it goes from half of the value it currently is. Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't affect him personally, really. It would affect staff, employees, and stockholders. But does he care? Is something more important to him that he's willing to continue pushing an agenda at all costs? And right now, it's you literally banned an active president, and you don't have to agree with anything the guy says. You could have, like, even putting the disclaimers on it was a bit much, but to full right ban somebody who's an active sitting president, I don't have to agree with a thing that the president says to go. I still want to hear what the president has to say. And that's the issue, is if you're a platform, you're supposed to be honoring that if he's not committing a crime. But yeah, it would be a matter of, I guess, looking at the investors in behind Twitter and seeing who's a part of that, who's the main stockholders, what do they believe, and going from there. But I found that really strange to say we need to protect the integrity of the conversation. That's not exactly saying we need to prevent incitement of violence. It's a fundamentally different thing, but it toes that line. And I guess I would say smart people know not to say too much of the wrong things. They kind of toe the line a little bit, but they generally aren't naive enough to say the wrong thing outright. But okay, we want to go back into an article we have. This is an old one, but the region of Waterloo. We're going to go through. Sorry, I don't have my screen share up here. This is an article we wrote a while back. Mask exemptions, what you need to know. We went through the Waterloo one, but we also provide a bunch of other area city list bylaws. So you can go through there if you're in St. John's, Halifax, Calgary, Regina, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Ottawa, or Toronto. We have those in there linked for you. Now, this is the point I want to part out to people that seems to go over everyone in the enforcement blitz that is coming from the province. When Police Chief Larkin says he wants to be compassionate, again, what do they mean by compassionate? Again, my main concern is, will they honor mask exemptions? And what are they going to look for to honor a mask exemption? Are you going to demand paperwork? What kind of thing are we going to look at? So it enacts as follows. A person who is unable to wear, this is part B of 3B of the Waterloo bylaw, mask bylaw. A person who is unable to wear a face mask covering as a result of a medical condition or a disability pursuant to the Human Rights Code. And so pursuant to the Human Rights Code, we pull up the Human Rights Code preamble, but I'm just going to go read part 1, services. This is what it says. Every person has a right to equal treatment with respect to services, goods, and facilities without discrimination because of race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, creed, which is a strongly held belief, separate from religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, age, marital status, family status, or disability. So that all comes into play. Accommodation. Every person has a right to equal treatment with respect to the occupancy of accommodation without discrimination because of race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, creed, which can include religion but also separate, can be a strongly held belief, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, age, marital status, family status, disability, or receipt. So they're also free from harassment in accommodation. Every person who occupies accommodation has a right to freedom from harassment by the landlord or agent of the landlord, aka employees, or by the occupant of the same building, or by an occupant of the same building. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Caitlin? Free from harassment from an occupant of the same building, or small grocery store story, if you hadn't heard about it, where we were downright harassed. Told we weren't going to be able to shop, had a bit of a spat with the staff there. And then because of the store policy that said they were not going to serve anyone with a mask exemption, it opened us up to a verbal harassment from a young man who decided he was going to call me and my wife every swear word under the sun. and basically call us bad human beings. But that's okay. All the best to them. But again, should be free from harassment by an occupant in the same building because of race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, creed, and citizenship, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, age, marital status, family status, disability, or receipt of public assistance. So here we are. That's my concern, is if it's going to be honored. On that topic, we have an interview set up. Monday will not be live. Will be out. Should be out Tuesday with a paralegal, where we're going to sit down and walk through the bylaw. We're going to walk through the Human Rights Code. And so that should be the first video we bring to you next week, Tuesday. Looking forward to it. And then I got to follow up with Carlos Roman in California to make sure he's still okay to do that interview. It was a long ways out. About 3 weeks that we tried to book, or that we did book the interview. So I have to double check, make sure nothing came up. I was an idiot and should have followed up earlier this week, but didn't. So hope that goes well. But if that goes well, that should be our Friday interview. So we're looking forward to bringing that to you. But this was the conversation I had on the phone, again, with the paralegal, was about the Human Rights Code and how creed specifically is a strongly held belief. In this case, I don't believe the science backs up the mask mandate, and the randomized control trials pan that out. There's some that suggest they do, but the ones that have been randomized control, there's not enough to suggest, and they also don't take into account the negative consequences on a society. And again, so things like micro expressions on faces, we give off micro expressions in our faces all the time, and that's how people read us. That's how we're able to connect with people. That's how we understand what other people are feeling. And you put on a mask and you cover all these little facial expressions in around your cheeks, in around your lips. And so how's that been accounted for when they talk about the benefits of mask? Is that being weighed? What are the downfalls? Is this making people more depressed and anxious? Is it making people less trusting? I would argue that it does. And so what's that? Is it being weighed against the mask mandate? Has it even been talked about? And the answer is no, it hasn't even been talked about. To my understanding, there's been no debate in the House, and it hasn't been weighed, and the consequences weighed and balanced. So again, I'm pro-face, especially mine. Somebody's not full of themselves. So my educated guess is not. So we'll see what shakes out of that. I'm looking forward to that. Look for that interview Tuesday. Excited to bring it to you, and we'll leave it at that. But there's that for the mask mandate. You can go to that article, everything you need to know about the mask exemption, something to that effect, and type in Diverge Media on Google. You should be able to find it that way. And then I would take a look at the Human Rights Code itself and get familiar to what you are protected with. So one of the things that happened when that store incident happened was that the bylaw said, listen, the bylaw says they don't have the right to ask about your exemption, but it doesn't say they can't, refuse you entrance altogether. Well, that's technically correct. The bylaw doesn't say that, but it is pursuant to the Human Rights Code, which says you can't discriminate based on race, religion. So this is where it gets very convoluted. If you are in agreement with, you say, hey, we should be able to get rid of people like Greg when he goes out shopping because he's not wearing a mask. We should be able to do that and object to him. What you're saying is, I don't think the Human Rights Code should apply. And I also think I should be able to discriminate based on all grounds, because what you're doing is there isn't this massive amount of evidence that says it's protecting you. In fact, when it comes out, you'll realize there isn't this overwhelming evidence in support of masks. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence in support of masks, but there's also randomized control trial, the Danish mask study that talks about it, and there's a lot of studies that would point the other way, that it's a marginal benefit at best, and only in the perfect conditions, wearing it 20 minutes, not soiled, etc. I need to wear a mask, shave my beard for my wife. Now she laughs at me. Oh, there you go, Tim.
I found it funny or interesting. I was talking with one of the older greeters at my store at my work, and she was getting all worked up about people not wearing masks, and I said, well, people have medical conditions. She's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, and I told her, like, if I was a greeter, like, I wouldn't enforce it at all. It's not my job to. it's not my job to get all worked up about it. She's like, well, there's these people being so inconsiderate. Like, she's all these different ways about it. And yeah, it was just interesting talking. It was just interesting talking with her about that. But like, I didn't understand because you talk one dialogue with her and then you talk another, and it's interesting getting people's input.
I look younger than you, Greg. Tim's proud of himself, I think. So, this is the issue, though. What would you expect that greeter's opinion to be on average if you're listening to the government every day, if you're listening to the mainstream media sources? I mean, you're going to say, well, you are selfish. I see a young man ahead of me that looks like he should be able to, and I see older people that shouldn't be doing it. And they keep hammering this, you're selfish narrative if you don't follow along. It's like, well, I can read from you. We've done articles on it. You remember my article. I went all the way back to 1975 talking about specifically mask in medical settings, and basically studies that didn't point to one way or the other them being beneficial. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but basically it said that worn in perfect conditions it could be beneficial, but it's marginal. And a lot of them said that there was no significant difference whatsoever. And so this is the thing, is you are also not accounting for, when you have this conversation, about the flip side and what the consequences are long term of an entire society wearing masking, not being able to see each other's faces and read each other in the way that you would say evolution has made us to do. So over time, that's what we've done, is honed in on our ability to read each other because you're not always able to speak. And so what is that doing? But again, I'm not surprised in the least that your coworker would think like that, because she's been trained to think like that. And the unfortunate part of all this is I often get in conversations, this will sound bad, I'm not a super overly intelligent person that I know everything or anything like that. I will never make that claim. But there's times I get in arguments with, or discussions with people rather, and I already know what they're going to say based on what I've said. I already know the talk points. Like, I could lay out their argument better than they can lay it out, only because I know what the government has said and I know what the mainstream media has said. And so I pretty much can tell you how somebody's going to react based on what their initial response, and how every comment that's going to come up after that. And that's where we're at as a society. People, it's become a virtue to regurgitate the government talk points rather than to think for yourself. So none of these government talk points, and I'll hammer out a new anchor point for people, none of the government talk points currently talk about the long-term consequences of our actions. None of the current talk points talk about the potential consequences, and I believe, not potential, but I believe it's 100% certain, the inflation that will lead to inevitably higher taxes and eventually public service cuts. The whole thing we're trying to protect is health. Well, if we don't have a way, we've lost a bunch of jobs as a result of ongoing lockdowns, we have to have higher taxes, then what we're doing is creating a future where people are going to have less opportunity, which means less jobs, less taxable income, and potentially, and not potentially, but likely will lead to public service cuts, which means worse healthcare. So it's a circular problem. Just because it may help today, and I'll give them a may, I don't believe it will. I believe the evidence suggests that it doesn't. But even if you thought it's helping today for sure, it is not worth the next 5 to 10 years or 20 or 50 years you're setting your children up for, your grandchildren up for, and even if you plan on never having children, you're setting yourself up for. So people should wear masks to protect themselves, N95 masks with the breather valve if you want to protect yourself. Yeah, it's the best alternative we have out there is an N95. If you want to wear it, wear it. I personally have no qualms if you want to wear it. The issue comes when it starts getting mandated through bylaws with the enforcement of public health inspectors, officials, like workplace inspectors now, health bylaw, or not health bylaw, but bylaw officials now have that power, as well as police, to fine and remove you from premises. That's when the issue comes in. You can...
them in today.
Sorry?
We had one of them in today.
Well, the ministry already in. Okay, so that brings me to my next article. Let's you tell the story here, and I'll pull up my article.
I mean, it wasn't really much. It was just I got told that she would be in, or that public health was in, and that we should be keeping our distance so that they didn't get fined, which is all good and dandy, whatever. Um, and so I have to help stock bikes upstairs on top of like just like a high shelving unit.
Okay.
So it's me and my coworker, and I'm handing a bike. So I'm trying to keep my distance from him, just so they don't get fined, because I'm trying to be a good boy. And the lady
Well,
walks
that's pushing.
behind us, and I'm like really uncomfortable. But I'm like,
She's like,
don't really care at this point.
she's doing like the like what's that meme where the girl's like the guy looks back at the other woman like, ooh, that's what she's doing every time she walks by you, like
Rubbernecking, we'll call it that.
right. And this is the thing. So this is day one, right? Basically, we're day one. It just came into effect today, Thursday, at 12:01 a.m. Right? So let's go into. I got an article that we wrote on it. Ontario to increase workplace inspections during COVID-19. That was literally the title of the press release. And I was like, wait, whoa, what do you mean during COVID-19? Just like the entire time it exists? Forever? Not just during lockdown? That's how I took it to mean. It's just forever.
Looking in the Matrix last year? What's going on?
Well, they say the campaign targets workplaces with higher risk. So according to the press release, the campaign targets workplaces identified with heightened risks that have been identified using data from local public health units and information reported directly to the province. The inspections will focus on areas of high transmission, including break rooms, and will provide resource materials to employers and workers to promote safe behavior before, during, and after work. I just picture like a picture book for employees and employers, like, no, you're closer than Jody is closer to John than 6 feet. Make sure to not be closer than Jody John. 2 penguins apart, or whatever stupid analogies they come up with. But anyways, the inspections will focus on workplaces in the following sectors: workplaces with reported COVID-19 outbreaks, manufacturing, warehousing, distribution centers, food processing, and publicly accessible workplaces deemed essential, such as grocery stores. So my concern is if we're doing more inspections that will focus on specifically manufacturing and distribution centers and warehousing, things that affect food processing, things that affect our supply chain, and ultimately will affect the cost of food. So my concern is, would they shut these places down outright? Are they going to be more lenient with places that are like a food processing place, where if they shut down, it will directly affect the cost to Canadians? Because if you have less supply and the same demand, price will go up. So what are their thoughts on that? And then they go through the fines here. That's $750 for not following the rules, as they say. $1,000 for preventing others, including employees or other workers, from following the rules. So if you told your friend there to come give you a hug, they might say you were preventing him from following the rules, and then fine you $1,000. So I don't know. Preventing others from following the rules, I'm not sure what that means, unless they mean
$1,000 hug sounds worth it.
Yeah. Maximum fines can be up to $100,000 for individuals and $10 million for corporations. So, I mean, even Walmart will care. The government says failure to follow the rules could also result in persecution or even a year in jail.
Prosecution.
Prosecution and persecution, yeah, close enough. But so this is the thing, like, it had all the people arguing about small businesses and it's not fair, and big box stores should be held accountable, right? And that's why with the article I did today on the workplace inspections, you see the Costco there. Just, and again, like that, maybe that's not great either. But the argument is, again, how does saying you can only be open to 8 p.m. help less people be in the store? You just reduce store hours. So that's one. Two, how does closing down small business prevent more people from flooding into box stores? It doesn't. In fact, it creates more people that have to go to box stores for their goods, other than having the opportunity to go somewhere else, like a small business. So none of these measures are proportionate to what they claim they're trying to do. That Oakes proportionality test, it needs to make relational sense to the thing you said it's for. So I can't be like, Broderick, you can't eat, because I'm worried about your health. Like, that doesn't work. You know what I mean? In the same sense, you can't be like, we're trying to prevent large crowds from gathering by preventing or by reducing store hours and closing down the options. Like, that's not a linked and rational response to it. So that's where I'm completely lost. What are you trying to accomplish, other than potentially ruining, well, not potentially, you're ruining small businesses. You're going to create less jobs over time. We're going to have less jobs, which means lower standard of livelihood, because it means more people competing for the same jobs, which means lower wages. So, and that also means less taxable income, which will likely come around full circle within the near future, 2 to 5 years, of cuts to public services somewhere, because you can't keep, again, this fiat game of fiat money can't go on forever. The piper's got to be paid. We're going to get to the point where we can't even pay the interest on our debt, and everybody thinks this can continually go on, it seems like, indefinitely, and I don't understand where people's heads are at. And if our leaders were actually leading, this would be the conversation at the front of the public conversation. Wish I was in South Dakota right now. What's so special about South Dakota? I don't know. This is news to me.
Baby Freak said that there's no governing laws there.
Okay.
And
I'll look into
they're
that.
gonna enforce Biden's mask bylaw.
Well, I'm going to look into that. So apparently there's no mask bylaw there.
Yeah, you kind of touched on those same things, but the other things I was talking with my coworker on was like, you know, there's people with medical exemptions, and she's like, well, some people lie, so, and I'm like, it shouldn't be a two-way.
So, flip side of that too.
Then
we've reiterated this like 100 different times on 100 probably different videos. How does it make any proportionate sense? So you're saying okay, I just lost my train of thought. You're saying your coworker was talking about.
I think I mentioned she was complaining about people not wearing masks, and I said something about the masks. So you lost my track of thought too. But
yeah. So okay, I got it back. Sorry. Asymptomatic spread. When have we as a society, and we've talked about this numerous times, ever focused on the smallest proportion of a problem and patted ourselves on the back while doing it like it was the most virtuous thing? The WHO has come out and said asymptomatic spread extremely rare, less than 3 to 5%. There's another study out of Wuhan, 10 million people tested, only 300 asymptomatic, and when they sent those off to be cultured, 0 were actually viable virus, meaning they were not able to infect another cell line, meaning they weren't truly infectious. When have we ever decided that it was the solution to focus on the smallest part of a problem? Society is focusing their attention on the 5% with mandatory masking, social distancing for healthy people. It's never made sense. Well, you might have symptoms and don't know. No. Like, it's very, very rare. And on top of that, so asymptomatic, you're talking 3 to 5% of the population, maybe? And then you have another study that comes out and said 0 that were asymptomatic out of roughly 10 million. Out of the 300 that tested positive with a PCR, they actually weren't infectious, none of them. And so that's where I don't understand is why are we giving the government an out on that and saying, yeah, mask, and I don't understand people's reasoning on that and supporting the government. We know it's extremely rare, but we need to do everything we can, I guess would be the argument on the other side. And don't you care? And they've seen what I mean. They've made it a virtue argument rather than a viable argument. So it's either result driven or it's an emotional argument. And what it is it's completely emotional argument. I care about people a lot. If I was sick, I would stay home. I'm not sick. And asymptomatic spread's so rare, and the benefits of wearing a mask so minimal, and the consequences are harmful, then it doesn't make sense to implement a bylaw or any law or any measure going forward that would then force somebody to wear a mask. Because I imagine if they took away the mask, a mandatory mask bylaw today, I bet you at least 60% would still, 60, 70% would probably wear it every single day still. Still.
The other thing I was going to say was I got talking to her about the tapering off of non-essential goods, and she was like, "Oh, I think we should do it." Blah blah. And I was like, "Do you realize how many people in the store would lose their jobs?"
No, she's never thought about it.
And then I'm like, we already lost 60,000 jobs recently in the economy.
Well, here's the other thing. Okay, so all jobs are essential. Do you really think that if somebody doesn't get, the government, this is the mentality. Like, people have no understanding of money. Well, but the government will pay them. You're the government. You're the one paying them. You're the one. You. And it's actually worse than that.
So
Because the government can do something we can't do. The government can create money out of nothing. And when they do that, it's an invisible tax. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when the government blows the budget and they just say, we'll pay for everything, Susie. We'll keep you at home. We'll keep you safe. You'll never have to work a day in your life. I'm here to help. Should terrify you, because when the government spends money that they don't have, we can't even do that as a consumer. You have a credit card limit and it's $2,500 or $10,000 or whatever it is. You can't spend $1 more than that. And you can't. The government can. And when they do it, it's an invisible tax because it ends up increasing the cost of everything you pay for in the form of inflation. Oh, I don't get it. Why is these greedy business owners? And then they flip it again and they go, see, it's the business owner's fault. He's so greedy. And you're like, really? They're greedy? You're the one who just flooded the market with fake money and made that cost go up. And they're still struggling to make it. Like most business owners, very few are the wealthy Scrooge McDucks that you would think they are. Like less than 1% of business owners are like that. I would say 95% of small business owners are just good, hardworking people, and maybe they make a good income and you think it's unfair. But like, I put this in perspective for you before. Oh, Walmart made $1 million last year at our store alone, and they should pay that to the employees. And it's like, okay, how many man hours? Right? And you break it down. Okay, so it's $1 million times 50 employees times how many man hours do they run? You would each get a 10-cent raise. Woohoo! And they get $0 profit. And then they have no buffer if anything goes bad. And then we're allowing government to get more and more tentacles into business and tell them what they can and can't do, to the point where they're telling them they have to shut down on merits of what? On a maybe, not backed by scientific evidence. On the again, if I'm healthy and I take all the precautions I can, there's no proof that I'm causing a drastic risk to others. So we've flipped and inverted it. So now it's a virtue to be angry at people, and it's a virtue to be mad at business owners. But notice that none of what the government talks about actually gets you mad at the source of that problem when we're talking about inflation, and that they can print all this money and they get to be your hero, and oh, look, they're here to help us. And meanwhile, what they're doing is they're making it incredibly difficult for those on fixed incomes to be able to keep up with the inflation. And we see this all the time. Like, go look at the grocery prices. They're up 3-4% every year. They say, well, I think low end is 1 to 2% is the estimation on inflation if you go by the basket. But even still, if that's the case, and we just say 2%, over the last 10 years, your dollar buys 20% less than it did. High five, everyone. That's the government in action. So I'm so fed up with this argument of it's to save everyone, because you're not thinking about the long-term consequences of it. You're not thinking about the effects on the economy. And again, you can't just keep doing this and expect nothing to happen. The inflation, I feel like we're just ready, like it's getting to the point where the levee's going to break and it's going to be the perfect storm. And, we have over 50% of our produce coming from the States, and we have likely some disturbances that are going to happen out of the States here in the next little while, potentially. And that could mean disturbances to the supply chain. And if there's disturbances to the supply chain on top of spending money like crazy that we don't have, that's going to be a big inflation cost to the consumer. And that's you and me that's going to have to pay that. So again, I'm tired of having this conversation and nobody talking about the long-term consequences of lockdowns. Because one of the long-term consequences of lockdowns is increased inflation, increased difficulty in buying essential goods to just live. Like rent and stuff can only go up so much a year, right? Mm-hmm. But products like food and clothing and stuff like that's not fixed in the same way. And so it can change drastically and very quickly, and it will, and it's going to happen all at once, and people aren't going to realize what happened. But here's Diverge Media telling you, you can't just spend money indefinitely and expect things to be okay.
I mean, just expect it. I mean, even since lockdown started, I think I overheard one of my bosses saying the other day that they're down 30 to 40% for the week. on sales year to date or something like that.
Even Walmart. That's what.
Just like our location sales for whatever. I don't know specifically what it was, what department or whatever, but
Dude, even still, to be down 30 to 40% in any department, it's just nuts. And that's, they've done better than almost everyone. And the other thing is like the absolute iceberg we're heading towards of like on the lockdown Titanic Express, and we're heading towards the iceberg, and people are like, full steam ahead, because apparently it never occurred to anyone to think about the consequences of how many jobs will not be able to hold on. Like, here's the other thing. They might be holding on now, right? But the government's extended funding left, right, and center because they can still get credit. What happens if they're no longer able to offer those? What happens when these bills come due for businesses and they can't make due? They're gonna CBBM gives them actual part ownership if they're unable to make a cash equivalent payback. They get assets. That's my understanding. You did the article a while back.
I don't think that was a part of it at the time. I do not remember.
Do you want to pull that up? You remember when you wrote it? Go back through it. It would have been early on when we did it. Yeah, so, and then rumors of UBI, I guess, are going around. Who knows? It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Keep coming in as the saviors to the populace. Meanwhile, they're taking your style and quality of life away from you and handing you back. They're literally stealing $100 out of your wallet and handing you back 40 and calling it a good deal. And it is for them. Oh, they know, but they're here to help. And, oh, Greg, shame on you for saying that. You don't understand. No, you don't understand economics. I say this with love in my heart. I care about you. I love you. If you can hate Diverge Media all you want. But the government is not here to take care of you, nor can they. And if they do take care of you, it's going to be good for a while, and then it's not going to be good at all, and it's going to be terrible quickly. That's how it works. The money has to come from somewhere. It has to be based on something, and right now, it's not. So here you got. You're pulling that up. I got another article I'm going to pull up. So, anecdote. We're going to go over through what's in the news cycle, so jumping a little bit all over the place. This one's from Forbes. Large numbers of healthcare and frontline workers are refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. Despite the COVID-19 death count in the United States rapidly accelerating, a startlingly high percentage of healthcare professionals and frontline workers throughout the country who have been prioritized as early receipts of the coronavirus vaccine are reportedly hesitant or outright refusing to take it, despite clear scientific evidence that the vaccines are safe and effective. That is according to Forbes. But we'll just leave it. There's one quote I want to get out. Fewer than half of hospital workers at St. Elizabeth Community Hospital in Tahoma County, California, were willing to be vaccinated. And around 20 to 40% of LA's county's frontline workers have reportedly declined the vaccine. Now, another one here, Dr. Nikhila Javadi, the chief clinical officer at Chicago's Loretta Hospital, said that a survey was administered in December, and 40% of the staff said they would not get vaccinated. So you have a large number of staff, including Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, said he was troubled by relatively low numbers of nursing home workers that have elected to take the vaccine, with approximately 60% of nursing home staff declining the shot altogether. So that's where we're at with the vaccine, and you can say it's safe and effective all day, but it hasn't gone through peer-reviewed trials. And as I'm going to pull up,
so there's no point in really pulling this article up because of what I've been able to look through on it. The only thing that it says is, note, if you file for bankruptcy, restructure, reorganize, or dissolve your business, you will need to pay back this loan. In the event of a default, CMHC has full recourse to recover the CRCRA funding from you, the property owner.
How?
I did not write that in there.
So I'm pretty sure that means assets. Like how? Well, if you can't pay back the cash equivalent, they still have the right to take it from you, is what it's saying. How are they taking that? did you sign up to potentially be on the line for assets? So that's the concern there. So this is Peter Doshi. I'm going to come back. So we have Forbes telling us the vaccine's perfectly safe. And I just want to go through Peter Doshi, associate editor of the British Medical Journal, and his opinion on it. So 5 weeks ago, I raised questions about, this is probably the one I want. Yeah, is it? Is it? I think so. Sorry, everyone. All right. About the results of Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine trials, all that was in the public domain were the study protocols and a few press releases. Today, 2 journal publications. This is January 4th, 2021. So this is new to me as well. And around 400 pages of summary data are available in the form of multiple reports presented by to the FDA prior to the agency's emergency authorization of each company's mRNA vaccine. While some of the additional details are reassuring, some are not. Here I outline new concerns about the trustworthiness and meaningfulness of the reported efficacy results. Suspected COVID-19. All attention is focused on the dramatic efficacy results. Pfizer reported 170 PCR confirmed COVID-19 cases split 8 to 162 between vaccine and placebo groups. But these numbers were dwarfed by a category of disease called suspected COVID-19, those with symptomatic COVID-19 that were not PCR confirmed. Well, that's concerning. Okay, so they weren't even PCR confirming. According to the FDA report on Pfizer's vaccine, there were 3,410 total cases of suspected but unconfirmed COVID-19 in the overall study population. 1,500, so they didn't, that's 3,410 people that were suspected of COVID-19 but not confirmed with the PCR test. Even with the issues with the PCR test, that should be the standard they're using in the trial because that's what they said they were going to do. But in the overall population, 1,594 occurred in the vaccine group, 1,816 in the placebo group. With 20 times more suspected than confirmed cases, this category of disease cannot be ignored because there was no positive PCR test result. Indeed, this makes it more difficult to understand. A rough estimate efficacy against developing COVID-19 symptoms with or without a positive PCR test result would be a relative risk reduction of 19%, far below the 50% effectiveness threshold for authorization set by regulators. Even after removing cases occurring within 7 days of vaccination, 409 Pfizer's vaccine versus 287 of placebo, which could include the majority of symptoms due to short-term vaccine reactogenicity, vaccine efficacy remains low, 29%, see footnote. So I don't want to skip through too much of his stuff because I actually think it's an expert opinion you likely haven't heard in the mainstream news. It just came out on the 4th, I believe. The 371 individuals excluded from Pfizer vaccine efficacy analyses. Another reason we need more data is to analyze an unexplained detail found in the table of FDA's review of Pfizer's vaccine. 371 individuals excluded from the efficacy analysis for important protocol deviations on or prior to 7 days after dose 2. What is concerning is the imbalance between randomized groups in the number of these excluded individuals. 311 from the vaccine group and versus 60 on placebo. In contrast, in Moderna's trial, there were just 36 participants excluded from the efficacy analysis, 12 in the vaccine group, 24 in the placebo. What were these protocol deviations in Pfizer's study? Why were there 5 times more participants excluded in the vaccine group? So that's another one. Fever and pain medications unbinding in primary event adjudication committees. That said, the rate of medication used in the vaccine arm further reason to worry about unofficial unbinding. Given the vaccine's reactogenicity, it's hard to imagine participants and investigators could not make educated guesses about which group they were in. The primary endpoint in the trials is relatively subjective, making an unblinding an important concern. Yet, neither FDA nor the companies seem to have formally probed the reliability of the blinding procedure and its effects on the reported outcomes. Nor do we know enough about the processes of the primary event adjudication committees that counted COVID-19 cases. Were they blinded to antibody data and information on patients' symptoms in the first week after vaccination? What criteria did they employ and why? So vaccine efficacy in people who already had COVID. Individuals with a known history of CoV-2 infection were excluded from Moderna and Pfizer's trial, but still 1,125, 3%, and 675, 2.2% of participants in Pfizer and Moderna's trials, respectively, were deemed to be positive for SARS-CoV-2 at baseline, meaning they started with that many positive too. So I guess they have to run the PCR test at the beginning of it and then again, but that rate off the hop, telling you 3 and 2.2% of the people they tested coming up positive. Vaccine safety and efficacy in these recipients has not received much attention, but as increasingly large portions of many countries' populations may be post-COVID, these data seem important, and all the more so as the U.S. CDC recommends offering vaccine regardless of history of prior symptomatic or asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 infection. So, we need the raw data. Addressing the many open questions about these trials requires access to the raw trial data, but no company seems to have shared with any third party at this point. So it's safe, but no company has shared the raw trial data with any third party at this point. Again, so if it's safe, be transparent. Pfizer says it's making data available upon request and subject to review. This stops far short of making data publicly available, but at least leaves the door open. How open is unclear, since the study protocol says Pfizer will only start making data available 24 months after study completion. Moderna's data sharing statement states data may be available upon request once the trial is complete. So the trial is not complete, but they're still testing it and running it here for emergency use, and they haven't released the raw trial data, and saying they won't until their trial is complete. That's the Moderna side. Pfizer's saying they'll release some of it based on request, but how much of that's actually being released is unknown. And so this may be different for the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine when the trial is complete. Has pledged patient-level data is what they've pledged. And the clinicaltrials.gov entry for the Russian Sputnik V vaccine says there are no plans to share individual participant data. So they have no plans to share individual participant data on that. So the European Medicines Agency and Health Canada may share data for any authorized vaccines much earlier. However, EMA has pledged to publish the data submitted by Pfizer on its website in due course, as has Health Canada. But again, if they're not releasing the data, that doesn't do the general population any good.
Well, the good news on vaccinations is that Trudeau doesn't seem to want to push a vaccine passport, as per Post Millennial article. You want to pull that up, Kate? Trudeau says he wants to serve Canadians for a number of more years, so it's kind of pushed in below the article. But I don't care, Trudeau. I don't want you to serve anymore now. But here we are.
Yeah, but I put that out there. Then who?
It's true. I mean,
like who's saying they'll actually do stuff different? Have you heard anything different really out of O'Toole? Have we heard anything different out of? I mean, we got a conservative government here in Ontario, and look what they're doing. So
O'Toole's just been sitting idly by, and like he seems like a friend of the independent media at first, but then he went back on his and started.
He went back as soon as he had to go back. He was a friend of the independent media, in my opinion, when he felt he had to be a friend of the independent media because he was in a conservative leadership race, and it doesn't look good to shun the conservative independent media. That's the thing.
He rejected Rebel, and then he did an interview with True North, which doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you're trying to be like, if you're trying to like one or the other, they're both together working. Like, I don't get it, but I like them both. Anyways, in this article,
go ahead.
If you want to pull that back up.
She can't because it looks like noise. Just read.
Anyways, in the article it says Trudeau also clarified his position on so-called vaccine passports, a proposal already being developed in some places which would require citizens to be vaccinated before they could participate in certain activities such as flying. Quote, I think the indications that a vast majority of Canadians are looking to be vaccinated will get us to a good place without having to take more extreme measures.
Extreme measures.
They could have real device impacts on Canadians and the country. Trudeau said on the subject, indicating that the government has no plans to institute such a policy. Now, the wording there is kind of more extreme measures, as you're saying, could point to that.
Well, we wouldn't want to do more extreme measures. Are you threatening us? Like, what are you saying? Okay, so first off, you don't think it's extreme to force people to vaccinate to fly? That's just a whole nother level of invasion into privacy. And again, there needs to be informed consent. There needs to, again, you gave emergency authorization to a vaccine, and people fail to forget that. Oh, they've been studying it a long time. Listen, it could be great. It could be the greatest thing ever. It's great. It's the greatest thing ever, as Trump would say. It doesn't matter to me, because until they release the raw trial data, it's peer reviewed and people can go through the information and they actually have a proper trial size and the proper trial participants. Different people from around different parts of the world have different DNAs. So, Canada is the most multicultural place on earth, in my opinion, or one of the most. And so you have people from all around the world that might react differently to the same vaccine developed. If you're not testing so again, how many people were tested? So in each group that has a different DNA. And this is, in my opinion, this was a conversation I had with a resident doctor about, vaccine development's different in different parts of the world because of the DNA of the people they are developing it for. So that's something to be concerned about. And then we have Peter Doshia, the associate editor of British Medical Journal. You've likely never heard it, coming out and saying, hey, they haven't released the raw data, and that's concerning. And he also talked about before is that none of them are checking to see if it's actually preventing infection. That's where this whole you're going to have to wear a mask even after. The media won't come out and be honest with you about why that is, but it's because it doesn't have any proof that it actually prevents infection. Now, it doesn't mean it won't. That's fundamentally different. But they're not studying it. It's not on a primary or secondary endpoint of their studies to see if it prevents infection. What they're looking for is to see if it reduces symptoms, and they believe if it reduces symptoms, even no matter how minor the symptoms are, that it will produce a vaccine that reduces more severe symptoms and also does all the other stuff they think it should do. But that's not what they're looking for, and they're not testing to see if it's reducing ICU hospitalizations or if it's reducing transmission itself.
Could be a lot of reasons too why they're getting it out so quickly. It's probably for the money. The race to get these sold off to governments, businesses. I don't know.
Okay, let me talk about temporary measures here for a second. Just remember that, you might be too young, but do you remember 9/11 and the Patriot Act? The Patriot Act wasn't a thing before.
So can you refresh me on what the Patriot Act was?
So you used to be able to go to an airport without being subjected to X-ray and all the other stuff before you got on a flight and we're about to fly.
I remember when I was 4, I didn't need a passport to travel by car over the border.
Yeah, and that was, I think, an older way of doing things, but that's not the case anymore. My point is that never went away. Once the government got that power, it never went away. In fact, it just ramped up and I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing to have protection measures when you're going to be subject to being in the air with a group of strangers. It'd be good to know there's no weapons on board and whatever else, unless they're properly claimed on and on. But what I'm saying is the governments don't normally willingly give up a power that they're given. And now they're asking for the power to mandate vaccinations when you go to the airport, which would mean that a service agent or somebody working at the airport that's responsible for you getting on a flight has the ability to know your medical information, which is now intruding into your privacy of your medical history, and that's unprecedented. You don't have to tell anybody any medical information. But now we're trying to go into a quasi world where the government's trying to give that approval for that human rights violation. That's dangerous territory because, again, I call it the foot in the door technique, Pandora's box. once they have their foot in the door on this issue, you can be dang sure they're going to try to use it for a bigger issue and a more extreme thing that they shouldn't be doing at all in the first place.
All right.
Go back to I got something else, and then we're pretty much in wrap-up position, I think, for tonight. I hope everybody's enjoying the last live stream for a little while. My only wish is that people would wake up. I am pissed that I won't be able to travel anymore. You know, I thought about that too, Ruth. I'd love to get back to Peru. I'd love to go see some friends down there and help some people out that I know and care about. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to go back. And again, there's none of this makes sense in the grand scheme of things. It does not make sense. One, the mask on the plane where you have recycled air, where it's aerosolized, the virus is aerosolized, so you're recycling. Okay, you're recycling the same air. You're on a 6 or 8 hour flight. There's your air. It's coming outside the mask, and then it goes into the cycle, back into the recycled air, and then you breathe it in again. Okay, but I'm crazy. I guess man, this logic and rational thinking process makes me insane. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, exactly. Conspiracy theorist. Yeah, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like the guy that was harassing me at a grocery store because I wasn't wearing a mask. Get ready for it. Had a beard. No, what's that mean? Well, if we're all about the science and we're all about, okay, you say masks work? Well, then you're not even wearing it in a way. You wanted the virtue signal, call me a bad human being, but you're almost worse because you're doing the thing you say I should be doing, but doing it incorrectly. You should know better. But this is where we're at. And it drives me up the wall. Anyways, we pull up the screen here, Kate. On the mask exemption thing, vaccinated Russians in Far East promised mask exemption. This is from the Moscow Times. Independent news from Russia, they say. I'm not too familiar with the Moscow Times. They seem okay so far. This is from 14 hours ago. Russians vaccinated against the coronavirus in the Sakhalin region, I'm butchering it, I'm sure, of the Far East will be exempted from wearing face masks, its governor announced Thursday, in contradiction to expert recommendations. Experts are, I guess, recommending that all the same measures be maintained, regardless of vaccination. Health officials urge vaccine recipients to continue wearing masks, maintaining social distance, and steering clear of crowds until the shot builds their immunity. Everyone who gets vaccinated will receive special badges. Ooh, I didn't read this. They will give them the right not to wear a mask in public places. Ooh, oh man, we were heading towards bad things. How is this? Again, you notice like the title clipped it and it sounded like a good thing. I have read the first 2-3 paragraphs. I didn't get to this one. And oh my goodness. Everyone who gets vaccinated will receive special badges. Well then, they will give them the right not to wear a mask in public spaces. So, start the black market for special badges. Everybody gets a badge. You get a badge. You get a badge. It was not immediately clear if the badges will be part of the Russian government's vaccination certificate system for overseas travel that President Vladimir Putin ordered earlier this month. Limarenko said the Sakhalin region, with a population of fewer than 500,000, is due to begin distributing 9,000 Sputnik V vaccine doses starting this Saturday. He promised the region 6,300 kilometers east of Moscow would receive a monthly batch of 10,000 doses from now on. So again, all around the world, they're talking about their own version of certificates, systems for travel. Basically, you don't have a shot, you won't be able to travel, it sounds like. That's where they're aiming. And in Russia, at least in the Sakhalin region, everyone who gets their vaccination will receive a special badge to say they were a good little citizen and can go around without a mask. And wow.
So if you lose your badge, do you take another vaccine then and get another badge, or is it you just gotta go to the doctor and show them your records? Or
how are we going to authenticate the badge? How are we going to keep the black market out of badge production? All right, Oprah, and you get a badge. That's right. So, I mean, that is terrifying to be talking about. They're trying to reverse it where it's like, oh, look, they've been vaccinated. It's a good thing. But at the same time,
And you,
I know a certain society that did badges before too. Now that's not the same. They're saying it's a great thing, but again, that's man. How long till they say, there's more people that are vaccinated than there is unvaccinated? So it's the unvaccinated people that are going to wear the patches now. There's a thought, right? That's just all sorts of messed up. Black market badges, 100 rubles. Get your first, comrade. Man, I have no words on that. I can't believe I just read that.
rubles.
Rubles. And they
Yeah.
have that's what they are, man. They're I remember wanting to invest in some of their currency because they've been backing gold into their society like crazy alongside China. All right, I have one article here I'm going to close out on, and then we shall be done for live streaming for a while, going to Wednesdays. So not this Wednesday, not next Wednesday. The Wednesday following will be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and then every 2 weeks from then on. And we will have video out on Tuesdays and Fridays now. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And they will be edited versions. They won't be actual live streams. So that's how we're going to be going and doing things going forward. Sorry, I cut you off.
He said rubles. So does he mean rupees? What's a ruble?
It's Russian currency.
And
Yes. All right. So wrote this one a while ago. When did I write it? This is from wow. It's a real wow. September 28th, 2020. So associations. Okay, what was titled here? Stress and illness: How government COVID policies are making you sick. Associations between psychological stress and disease have been established, particularly for depression, CVD, and HIV/AIDS. Other areas in which evidence for the role of stress is beginning to emerge include upper respiratory tract infections, asthma, herpes, viral infections, autoimmune diseases, and wound healing. That is the Psychological Stress and Disease Journal of Medical Association. Mandated mask. One study followed 158 nurses that had to wear PPE mask for greater than 4 hours a day, had developed mask-related headaches. I think it is fair and reasonable association to say that those suffering from ongoing headaches as a result of the mask might be stressed out about that knowledge. The stress may be making them more susceptible to COVID itself. So, participants included nurses, doctors, and paramedical staff. Pre-existing primary headache diagnosis presented in about a third of respondents. Those based at the emergency department had higher daily duration of combined PPE exposure compared to those in isolation wards. Out of 158 respondents, 128, 81% respondents developed de novo, or new, PPE-associated headaches. So, having a big effect there for those having to wear them. And I would love to hear comments in the comments section about those who have to wear them for work. If they actually are strict about it and you have to wear it, if headaches has been an occurring problem for you. The other one, mask acne. Quote, face masks are causing an uptick in acne. The humid and sticky environment your mask creates around your face lends itself to breakouts around the nose, cheeks, mouth, and chin. Surprise, surprise. You would think it would be common sense that by saying wearing a dirty, sweaty, soiled mask throughout your workday could lead to acne breakouts, but apparently this comes as a surprise to experts. Wow, whoever wrote this is a bit of a sarcastic guy from time to time. The stress of having one's skin breakout cannot be understated. Acne can lead to very sensitive and tender skin, and let's not forget self-consciousness. This also doesn't seem to matter to physicians who have abandoned their Hippocratic oath all around the world that states do no harm, instead replacing it with their own personal mantra of do what is politically convenient. If someone is going to have ongoing acne and skin issues as a result of wearing a mask, why aren't you writing an exemption to prevent that harm? I think I know. Fear and cowardice. I was a little angry, I think, when I wrote this one. Mask mouth. This is another issue from mandatory masks that have been seen by dentists. And it says, imagine seeing so many patients that have a history of healthy gums and teeth coming in with all sorts of issues like decaying teeth, receding gum lines, and really bad breath. Roughly 50% of one dentist, now it's just one dentist, but it's 50% of his patients are being impacted by this. they decided to name it Mask Mouth after what? Meth mouth. Yeah, like that drug meth. Yeah, that one. So there's something called meth mouth, and they've named this after that. It is mask mouth. This is a condition that occurs from forcing air through a mask, which dries out the mouth, creating an environment where plaque can thrive, resulting in a myriad of dental issues. And that's from the release here of the New York Post. So why did we mandate masks? Masks have not been proven to be effective in reducing transmission of influenza. One can reasonably deduct this applies to COVID, have many adverse mental health impacts, and may actually increase transmission of viruses, including COVID, in the general population. That's not just my opinion. That's echoed by Sweden's epidemiologist, that wearing mandated masks can actually increase transmission from people touching their mask constantly, improper fits, etc. So, a shining symbol of obedience. This is from the New England Journal of Medicine, article titled Universal Masking in Hospitals in the COVID-19 Era. Now, this is granted from early on, I believe July at the latest. But again, I think it's an important one to read out. There may be additional benefits to broad masking policies that extend beyond their technical contribution to reducing pathogen transmission. Masks are visible reminders of an otherwise invisible yet widely prevalent pathogen, and may remind people of the importance of social distancing and other infection control measures. It is also clear that masks serve symbolic roles. That's a little bit weird to put in a medical journal for something that is clearly scientifically based to prevent transmission. So they're saying there may be additional benefits beyond their technical contribution to reducing pathogen transmission. They're visible reminders of a pathogen, may remind people of other important measures, and it's also clear that the masks serve symbolic roles. So that stood out to me, obviously. And here's another one from another medical study, that same NEJM study. Masks are not only tools, they are also talismans that may help increase healthcare workers' perceived sense of safety, well-being, and trust in their hospitals. Although such reactions may not be strictly logical, we are all subject to fear and anxiety, especially during times of crisis. One might argue that fear and anxiety are better countered with data and education than a marginally... What? This is New England Journal of Medicine. With a marginally beneficial mask, particularly in light of the worldwide mask shortage, but it is difficult to get clinicians to hear this message in the heat of the current crises. So did they downplay the benefits of masks because they were in a mask shortage, or were they being honest about it being marginally beneficial? I've said it's marginally beneficial at best, and when I say marginally beneficial, not significant enough, especially when you factor in healthy people aren't spreading this virus. But it is difficult to get clinicians to hear this message in the heat of the current crises. Expanding masking protocols' greatest contribution may be to reduce the transmission of what? Anxiety, over and above whatever role they may play in reducing transmission of COVID-19. So it's a talisman that may help increase healthcare workers' perceived sense of safety. Well, I'm pretty sure you don't say perceived sense of safety if it's a actual safety helping device, or it's actually very clear that it's helping. You don't say things like perceived sense of safety in the same article. Can we agree on that, Broderick?
No. I mean, yeah. I'm on board. Yeah.
Although such reactions, they go on to say, may not be strictly logical. We're all subject to fear and anxiety, especially during times of crisis. One might argue that fear and anxiety are better countered with data and education than with a marginally beneficial mask, but it is difficult to get clinicians to hear this in the current crisis. Expanded masking protocols' greatest contribution may be to reduce the transmission of anxiety over and above whatever role they may play in reducing transmission of COVID-19. So, I don't really... I mean, that's an old one. But again, I went through the randomized controls trial on the Danish mask study, and then they tried to throw that one out because they said, well, the Danish mask study, they didn't follow the protocols hard enough. And the Danish mask study basically said, the people in this study followed it better than the general public. That's better. So it might not be a completely randomized control trial, but they tried to advocate that it meant you should wear a mask. But again, this is what's happening with the funding in medical studies too, is there will be a piece in there that is important, like that Wuhan study, 10 million roughly tested, 300 asymptomatic. When they sent it off for culture, 0 were actually viable. And then they go on later to say, but 197 based on antigen tests may be infectious. It's like, what? Like, no. You said you couldn't culture it. That means it's not infectious. And then they're like, but the antigen tests were a positive on 191 out of the 300. Therefore, they could be infectious. So it's just this constant, rigmarole to try to get the narrative out, even when you're talking about things that are against the narrative. But I think that's good for us to end here tonight. If we have no questions for anybody in the audience, I think that's a good place to end it. Do you have anything else to add tonight?
No.
Well, there we go. So, Tuesdays and Fridays, look for our videos. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, you can do that. If you're not on YouTube, we're going to be releasing it on Facebook, Rumble. Look for them as well on MeWe. That will bring you probably to YouTube at that point. But we're looking at Rumble is probably going to be the primary place where we do a lot of our videos for alternative platforms anyways. But on that topic, Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we will join you. We'll be a part of that in the comment section with you to be able to go through the information. It's going to be more news broadcast style, and not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday following, we will begin live streaming every 2 weeks, Wednesday, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. At the same time, sorry. It's definitely all about compliance. Right on. What they are doing is beyond a mask. Yep. I mean, the amount of medical studies we've gone through, marginally beneficial at best. It's a talisman that may reduce anxiety. Like, you don't put stuff that again, in a medical so show me the medical study that gives like clear, concise proof that from a randomized control trial that masks are so helpful. Because unless you have that, it's not overturning that, which said marginally beneficial. And then they went on to say it's a talisman that may reduce anxiety. You don't say stuff like that when it's clear that a mask is actually effective in reducing transmission. You just don't. Because if you did, you'd say it. And if it was true that it was actually known to reduce transmission and it wasn't up in the air in the question, you'd put the advertising on your box too. You'd say it doesn't reduce all transmission. Like, when you get a condom and then they say it's like 99% effective, they still give you a warning like, hey, if it's not worn properly and stuff, it's not going to help. But they're not even putting like, hey, this mask when worn properly reduces transmission by 20%. Like, they're not even doing that, or 30 or 40 or 50. I don't even want to know. Should I look at the comments right now?
The absence of a mask? Wait, no, pads. I mean pads. What do you like? Is it the throat, the nose? Like, where are we putting this pulling string?
Going for the walrus. Oh, walrus look. 2 tampons.
2 tampons.
Okay, so that was an image I didn't need. Oh, what do we get? 2 tampons, 1 pad. Okay, this has gone off the rails again.
All right, great, everybody.
All right, amiga. Good job as always. All right, thanks everyone. If you've been following us for a long time, we really do appreciate it. Again, I know we're changing it up here, and you're not going to be seeing as much of us, but we are adamant that we are going to continue to grow. We're going to be a alternative media that's right in the realm of a post-millennial, a National Telegraph, and a Rebel News. We will be a part of the conversation in Canada. In order to do that, we got to do some stuff, and that means we got to present the platform in a palatable way, and we need to hone our craft and get better. So for everyone that's been along for the ride, thank you. It's only going to get better. And man, I almost sounded like Trump there. This is just the beginning. But it is. It's just the beginning. We're just getting started. And, man, I want to rip another line of his. And the best is yet to come. So, not a Trump supporter, by the way. All right. Greg Staley from Diverge Media. Thank you for everyone who's been tuning in. We will see you Tuesday and Fridays at 7 p.m. Not next Wednesday, the Wednesday following at 8:30 p.m. And we'll put up the dates. It's going to be huge. We'll put up the dates on our Facebook page and on Twitter about when those videos will be coming out. Look forward to it, and we look forward to being able to just join you in the chat as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.